Hello, Matthew. My name is Ray Chase, and I'm a supervisor at Real Effects here in Dallas. I will be giving you a critique on your winning entry, which congratulations on winning this month for the 11-second club. So let's just jump right in and take a look at what you got here. I already looked at it a couple times, but I always like to look at it together with you and then discuss.
Well, I think you're wrong.
Well, I think I'm right. I know I'm right. I am right. I am right.
Well, I think it's worth doing some research.
Cool. So I think overall, I really like what you did here. I think it plays really well. Technically, I think everything is working pretty good, right? Animation-wise, nothing's like glaringly off. There are some things I think you might want to consider, just to kind of improve it and maybe to pump it up a little bit. We'll start talking with the about the blue guy, and then we'll move on to the purple guy. So I'm not sure, if this is a rig that you made yourself or what kind of controls you have to work with. But one thing I was noticing is that some of the eye shapes. Actually, can I turn the sound off? There we go. I think some of the eye shapes, maybe just pushing those a little bit more, experimenting with that just a little bit. In general, and sometimes, I mean, it's a stylistic choice, right? Some shows, you have more lower eyelids than others. I do feel that the blue has a lot. He's kind of heavy on the lower eyes. So basically, even like a pose like this, when you take a look at his eyes, and you kind of just kind of blur your eyes and look at him, it's kind of like it almost feels like he's a little bit sleepy in the eyes because the upper lids are very heavy, and then the lower lids are kind of high as well. So you may just want to experiment with backing these guys off just a little bit. You got a little bit of sort of the turbo thing going on with the eyes, where they have just the stalks and the eyes are up here. So obviously they need to use the lower lids a little bit more because they don't have the benefit of having the cheeks to push up and to make those squints happen. So you might want to just play with only using the lower lids when you need to have the characters squint. If you don't have the ability to do a bunch of cheek control type stuff under there, because ideally, what you would have in real life, not that these are real life characters, that the lower eyelid doesn't really move on its own. The cheek muscles, push up, and they push the lower eyelid up a little bit. And that's what kind of causes that. They can't just kind of move on their own. When it's Toy Story or what have you, when they're like little toys and things like that, and we're not worried about making them fleshy and all that kind of thing, then that's totally cool to be using them that way. So just kind of drawing over what you have here, kind of feeling like the pose still works without the lower eyelids, and then you can kind of see the difference where it kind of feels like he's a little groggy, or like he's a little bit sleepy, and here he doesn't feel quite as so. If you were to try that, if you did a pass, maybe even go into like your into the channel box, maybe mute if you wanted to. Just do it on a global scale. Mute the UDs on the lower lids. Just take a peek and see how it plays. You might then be able to then bring the upper eyelids down a little bit more if it starts to feel like the eye is maybe a little bit too wide at times. But I would just maybe experiment with that just a little bit, because it feels like, I mean, here at the beginning this is great. Like right here when he's in this pose, this totally feels like a great opportunity to use those lower lids, because he's all like, meshed up in the face and kind of, glaring anyway. But then when he gets into other areas, like in here, I would just go ahead and just drop those lowers, get them all out of the way, and then all through here, I think you could just benefit with not having, being so heavy on the lower eyelids. Another thing to try is to keep in mind, and again, this can be kind of show specific style specific, but trying to keep the lid line of the eyes not dead center in the middle, trying to favor it just a little bit more down this way. And again, not knowing what kind of controls you're dealing with, I would just take what you currently have, the upper and lower UDs, and just drop them down a little bit. Again, when you do a blink and so forth, the upper eyelid does most of the work. The lower eyelid doesn't really move up. There's maybe a little bit of movement in there, but it's really the upper guy coming down to meet the lower guy. So getting it out of the middle, bringing it down to the bottom, and then throughout here is just a little bit more. Again, some more examples of where you're just a little heavy on the lower lid. Now you might be thinking, well, there might be times when I want to, like right here, maybe you really want to have those lower lids up. I would try in those cases, if you really like this pose and you like the use of lower eyelid here, just take out the uppers. Basically, if you're using the uppers, don't use the lowers, and vice versa, just so it doesn't feel quite so much like he's squinting so much. And I think some of the emotions will read through just a little bit more if you give that a go. Another thing that I was noticing in the eye area of Mr. Blue here, as best you can, trying to make the upper eyelid mirror a bit more of what the eyebrow is doing. You're doing it a little bit here at the beginning. You could probably push maybe this guy. I'm going to do a really bad job of trying to draw it, but just trying to get a little bit more of that upper eyelid sort of match what the eyebrow is doing, maybe even a little bit here, just shaping this just a tiny bit more. I think you have some examples later on that's probably going to lend itself a little bit more to it. There's one spot in particular that I was noticing. Where was it? Maybe I already passed it. Oh, I think it's this one. Okay, so what's starting to happen, purple guy, just if we go to purple guy just real fast, the flow with the brows is feeling pretty nice here. Blue guy, the flow with your eyebrows is a little bit, it feels a little bit like this line's kind of coming down and hitting a little bit of a wall. If you could, kind of round this out just a bit through here so that maybe it's a little bit more rakasu. So if I draw a line like that, now if you take a look at the lid line that's being drawn by your upper lid, you get a little something like this, and then a little something like that. And the lines are kind of competing, so you got a little bit of a wavy line going through the upper brow, and then the upper lid lines are kind of competing with that, and then again, your lower lids are kind of high. Here, though, it kind of works with your lower lids because he is kind of a little bit like he's squinting. So what I was suggesting is, just trying to, as much as you can, and I know sometimes, depending on the rig and so forth, controls can be a little tricky, but trying to make the upper lids mimic a little bit more of what the brows are doing, and if you can, round those corners out just a tiny bit, not like round them really, but opening them up just so that you can try to get a little bit of a nice line. So that as your line in your brows has a nice flow to it, trying to get the same kind of a flow going with the upper lids as well. And the same thing sort of applies with the lower guys. Yeah, so those are kind of some big things I think with the brows and the lids. A couple things with the mouth. It feels like the lip sync is feeling pretty good. It would be great to maybe try to push some of the mouth shapes just a little bit. Let me bring the sound up just a tiny bit here so we can hear a bit of what's happening.
Well, I think you're wrong.
Well, I think I'm right. I know I'm right. I am right. I am right.
Okay, and what I'm kind of getting at is just trying to push some of the shapes a little bit more. Yeah, I think some of the stuff that you're doing here, where you're kind of making the mouth do like these arcs to the face, is great. I love that. I would actually maybe push it just a tiny bit more. It feels like even like right here, like you're starting to get a little bit of a swing with the mouth, which is fantastic. I love that. I love doing that in my shots as well. But it does feel a little bit like, if you kind of watch the corner right here, like you're getting this nice arc. It's coming over towards extreme left, and then it kind of hits a little bit of a wall, and it gets a little linear as it comes up. Maybe just have it like rounded out just a little bit more. I like to use the analogy all the time, perhaps too much. It's like cows, when they chew, and they're eating like this. Not that you want your dialogue looking like that, but it's having that kind of flexibility in the face. And you're getting that a lot in here, I think, maybe just pushing it a little bit more in that area. And then what I was getting at with the mouth shapes, it's not so bad through here, but like in this shape here, it feels just a little bit symmetric, just with what the mouth is doing. Maybe just, and I do this in very subtle ways, just by adding a little bit more, maybe sneer to the side of the mouth, Maybe bring the corner down a little bit more like that, just to make it look just a little bit more interesting. It's not that what you have is not interesting. It's just plussing it out a little bit more, just pushing it a little bit more. Let's see, there was another spot. Let's see. It might have been right through here. Kind of like what you're getting into right through here, but then it feels like you kind of get out of it. Oh, this is here. It's in the M shape. You're getting a bit of a flat mouth, which, there's nothing wrong with that. But this might be a tad bit better. Just getting a little bit of a design to it, so it doesn't just feel like you just zeroed the mouth out, whoop, and closed it. Be careful with the mouth here. You got two things going on here. He's kind of shooting up really fast with his body, and he kind of stops. And again, the animation's it's got a nice snap to it, and it's a little posy at times, which is fine. I mean, stylistically, I think that's working well for you. But I think like right here, if you watch the top of his head, you watch his eyes, you watch his mouth, everything kind of boop, it kind of hits and stops. You might want to have the mouth continue up a little bit more and then come back down. That'll help to kind of loosen that just a bit. Maybe right through here, maybe get a little bit more asymmetry in the mouth. A couple spots here, like right here where the mouth gets a little, just starts to feel just a tiny bit generic. Just putting some asymmetry in there. Sometimes, I'll do like an asymmetry pass. I try to build asymmetry into the shapes, even when I'm blocking, because when I block my stuff out, I do the pose, I do the expression, I'll put the phoneme in there, and I will put a little bit of asymmetry in there. But then as I'm kind of working through, I'll try to take and do like a lip sync pass, where not only are you trying to make sure that it feels like the dialogue is coming out of the character, but also trying to make sure that the mouth is looking as interesting as it can be. Because as I'm sure you well know, the longer you work on a shot, you start to kind of just get hypnotized to everything. So starting to focus on, well, is this an interesting mouth shape? Can I push this E shape a little bit more? Show a little more teeth here or whatnot. Is always a good sort of practice. Cool. So that was some of the big stuff that I was seeing. Just was kind of plussing what's already there. Just a couple of acting things on Blue. Here at the beginning, it kind of strikes me as he's kind of studying the dresses, and he's a little he's a little firm here. But then he kind of lightens a little bit when he sees the purple dude pop out. But then he goes back into the firm expression. But then when Purple starts to talk, he almost acts like he's surprised, like, oh my gosh, I didn't know you were there. But he just sort of looked at him. So I don't know. I mean, and maybe it's a personal preference thing. I'm kind of feeling like maybe you don't need this moment here where he kind of like looks over his shoulder. I mean, maybe if he's there like studying the dress, maybe he readjusts, like, and then you maybe put a little head shake or something where he's just like, I don't know, I think it's blue. People say it's not blue, I think it's blue. And then when Purple starts to speak, that's when he's like, whoa, I didn't know you were there. Rather than sort of like, yeah, I know you're there, but I'm going to start to look at this again, and oh, you surprised me. So anyway, just a little something, just a suggestion to throw out there. The other thing, just with his acting and his movement throughout here, it would be great, because it does feel like both characters are feeling a little hot glued to the spot that they're on. Little teeny hops in TY, like literally like a little bouncing ball type of thing, where I don't feel like the character would have to move a lot, but on some of these big moves where he's really starting to swoop, and he's starting to get kind of, well, I know I'm right, and he's starting to get a little bit more, animated and agitated. Maybe he has like boop, like a little hop this way or a little hop that way. You don't have to move them all around, because I like the staging, I like where they are in relation to each other, but just getting them to physically leave the ground in a couple key moments, not like you don't want them bouncing throughout. Might be an interesting thing to work in there, just to kind of help loosen it up. Because even like right here when he does like this little move here, he does this big swoop. that might be a good moment to, as he's doing that, the momentum kind of makes him, boop, do a little hop this way, and then he does like a half a hop back or something like that, just to kind of help to loosen him up, keeping him alive. But let's see. And again, I love the quickness to a lot of what you got going on. A lot of this is like really, really funny in terms of the snappy timing. Again, as another example of just flow through the eyes. Not to keep harping on this, but if we take a look at this this frame here, you can see how this line is going down this way, but then this line is going that way, and this line is going here, and then that line's going there. So the flow is getting a little janked up there. Just try to keep that single line idea. It's like Bert. It's the Bert brow, the unibrow. That unibrow idea in the upper lids and also in the lower lids. Sometimes it can be tricky depending on the design of the character and so forth, but as much as you can, that would be fantastic. Let's take a look at Mr. Purple here. Okay, so Mr. Purple's pretty funny when, I guess it's she, comes out here. One thing that you might want to do, and because it is very funny how she kind of leans out like that. You may want to, if you have the ability with the rig, take this part of the head here and just drag it a little bit that away, so that like right in here you're getting just a little bit of this kind of a thing happening. So it's almost like she's coming out. Let me see, where do you end up? You end up in something like this. So it's almost like she's going and like walking her head like that. So if she actually had a head and shoulders and that kind of thing, and is being revealed from behind somebody, it's like she's coming out and being like doing that. And I'm exaggerating a little bit there, but just to again help to break it up and add a little bit of some overlap happen in there. This eye dart that she does here, it feels a little big. The dart itself, the amount the eyeball is moving, I was trying to think earlier. I was like, well, it doesn't feel too fast, but what is it? What is it about it that's bumping me? And I think it's because of those lower lids, because we go from a lot of upper lids and not a lot of lower lids to, in one frame, pretty much the opposite, right? Where you're almost flipping it. So I think if you just cut down on how much these guys come up, and it might make it kind of funny, because as I'm drawing it here, it's kind of making her look kind of funny, where she's kind of got like these big sort of like eyes like that, right? So then when you do that, it feels more like the pupil, iris and pupil are doing the movement, and you're not getting this big jet of purple happening under that bit. So that would be a suggestion there. And again, stylistically, you're doing lots of like holds where things are feeling pretty solid on the hold. I myself like to have a little bit of keep alive in there. It's kind of up to you, I mean, it works really well when that's kind of the style where things kind of hit and then the movement kind of just completely comes to a halt. You got a little bit of that going on here, whereas I kind of shuttle back and forth. Purple's kind of a little bit stationary. You may want to get just a tiny little bit of keep alive in there, just so it's not quite so hard, because I think in this instance she's so very still, and then a little bit of anticipation that you have here, I feel like it's just not quite enough before she starts to move. So it's up to you. You can kind of play with it. Maybe the anticipation happens a little bit earlier. Maybe you start to like blink one of the eyes a little bit just to kind of help lead the action, and then maybe you won't make it feel like it's so solid and then the movement happens. That's dealer's choice on that one. But okay, so then let's see. So she does a bit of dialogue here. This is all great. You may consider some similar ideas with the eyes and the lids, kind of like with blue. Maybe like in this instance here, when her head's kind of back like that, and she comes down and says her line, you could flare the eyes a little bit, have the upper lids come up just a tiny little bit, so you get just a little bit of a flare of white as she comes back down. Because she's kind of like in this sort of like, like, you are nuts this entire time. So that might be kind of fun to kind of get a little bit of that in there. You can maybe bring the lower lids down a little bit through here. It's not too terrible with her, because I think the angle of the head and that she's kind of in a squishy sort of face, it kind of makes it feel like the cheeks would be pushing up on those guys. Okay, so then you got this little bit here. This is all cool. And she's kind of watching him like, you. Okay, so a couple things here. One might just be a technical thing that's going on, but if you watch this mass of the bod, when she starts to talk, it's like a big shift with this whole thing just kind of moves over. Anything you can do in there to kind of soften that up, because it kind of draws attention to itself. Again, she's so still, and then you see this big mass of purple start to move. It's a little tiny bit distracting. The other thing that I kind of felt was that I kind of feel like Blue's talking and he's saying all of his stuff. It almost feels like she's waiting for the go-ahead to say her line, right? And it's one of those things where I feel like you can maybe have her start to, she can hear that he's wrapping up his little I'm right, and blah, 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 being all, self-important. Maybe she can get ready to start talking before she starts talking. So then it doesn't sound like she's sitting there, and then, and it's like, and talk, and then she starts to talk. So then it feels a little bit more like maybe she's like looking at him, and she's like, blah, 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 and then she starts to say her stuff. And so, there will be no sound or anything, just a little bit of a, oh my God, you're so stupid. And then she'll deliver her line. You always want to have characters feel like they're engaged in the conversation and not so much, I'm just going to stare at you. I'm going to stare at you while you say your lines, and then I will speak, and then you will listen. Okay. So through here, a similar thing with the lids. Again, she's doing the squinty eye, so it kind of works. Might be getting a little too squinty with this guy. You might just want to keep the same idea that you have here, but maybe take those lower lids, drop them down just a bit, so they're not quite so high. Okay. Here I think would be a great opportunity to go ahead and open the eyes up just a little bit, just to help to give you some contrast later. So she's kind of like this as she's talking, and then maybe the eyes get a little bit wider. Not so much the uppers, but again, drop the lowers. So she's like, so then you're getting like, squishy, open, squishy. So you're getting some contrast and some places to go with the eye shapes. Okay, and then this is cool here, like all that. Okay. And this just might be an area here, Matthew, where you might just want to add just a tiny little bit of Keep Alive on purple. It's really your choice. Maybe it's mock breathing, or, a little bit of a head nod, like I'm right, and I hate saying that because head nods and head shakes can become super overdone. So don't necessarily do that. Do something like that. Maybe an eye dart. Maybe continue with the mouth when she kind of gets over there, and then it continues just a tiny little bit, just to kind of keep it alive. Not so much that it distracts, because I love that she becomes very still, he becomes very active again. That's a great way to lead the eye of what you're supposed to look at. If too much is moving at the same time, people get confused and all those things. And then you're out. So yeah. And hopefully it doesn't seem like like too terribly much or getting too nitpicky or anything like that, because I think overall, the first time I watched it, I laughed. I was like, oh, that's funny, it's cute, and it's got a nice snap to it, and it feels kind of zippy, and they're squishy and all that. I love it. Just some ideas to maybe keep in mind if you wanted to to try some stuff out with this one. Again, if you wanted to just in general with the eyelids, you might be to mute the channels just to kind of mute it, do a play blast, and be like, I don't know if I like that. Or, oh, hey, that works great there, not so much there, and be able to pick and choose those types of things. If you do have any controls for the cheeks, you might try to bring them up in areas like right here where, you could possibly benefit from having a little bit of the cheeks being higher. If not, you're doing a good job of sort of mimicking that feeling with the lower lids. But anyway, great work. Congratulations again on winning the 11-second club, and good luck to you in all of your future animation endeavors.